I'm going to talk about a subject today that I've thought about for a very, very long time. And it's the nature of success. Why is it that some people seem to just have a knack for making things that work, while others seem to struggle? And after a very long time of a variety of different things that I've done, I've come to the answer. And it seems to me that it is more embedded in a story, as I seem to like to use, than it is embedded in a concept. Concepts are sort of the scaffolding. They are things which are used to build stories, and they lack an enormous amount of wisdom. They're ideas that make you believe you know what they mean without actually giving you the necessary information. Now, I guess a story I should probably use, an analogy, which is what we call for a story that's sort of more of a parable or something to teach, is the idea that when a seed falls off of its respective plant or tree to the ground and over time is absorbed into the soil, it does not always sprout. And it has all the conditions about it. It's doing nothing. It is simply waiting. The thing that causes it to sprout is not its effort. In fact, there is absolutely no effort put on the side of the seed. There's absolutely nothing that is inside of its control, and yet some of those seeds succeed. And they succeed not because of their effort, but because of their conditions and the quality of their makeup. And there's many seeds that fail, and they get to a point where they can no longer germinate, or where they're eaten as food, and they do not succeed. And so there's this concept in current modern culture of the person who hustles, as someone who has a side hustle, and they're going to make it big, and they're going to work 120 hours a week, or whatever number they happen to throw out. And they're just going to outwork you, and they're going to outdo it, and they're going to just copy the best. And I want to put some cold water on that idea. This is not the way to success. Success, from my experience, only comes when you have accepted it as something that is not dependent on results, as it is something that you can do without being dependent on results. Results are poison because you try hard and you fail, and that is the normal course of things. We have this illusion that that's not the normal course of things. That is the normal course of action, is trying something and failing. And we have this illusion in our head that I try and I fail. I try and I fail. And on the third time, I try and I succeed because the third time's the charm. It is not. The difference between you succeeding and someone else succeeding is entirely dependent on who is willing to carry the burden the longest and make adjustments along the way. It has absolutely nothing to do with how many times you tried and how many times you failed. It has absolutely nothing to do with how hard you tried and how hard you failed. In fact, if you try harder you will fail harder. Let's imagine that you're someone just out of college, as I was many years ago, and you say to yourself, I'm going to succeed on my own. I don't need anyone. You have created an illusion in your head through which you will become a slave to your desire, and through which you will be brutalized. And I know this from personal experience. This is not some theoretical thing. This is a fact. And it is not until you understand that it is not trying harder that will bring you success, but is when you understand that failure is the norm. It is a seed sitting in the ground that has not germinated yet. But someday the conditions will come in which that seed will germinate if it is strong enough to endure the brutality. So what you understand is about endurance. It is the old adage of 1% is inspiration and 99% is perspiration or effort. The problem is that I want to change that old adage to say it is 1% inspiration and 99% endurance. Because I don't really believe that perspiration will actually get you there. I think that is that's a concept that's very relatable to people, because most work, when that adage came into being, was physical labor. And so it was very relatable, so they repeated it because it made sense, and it was pretty correct. It's pretty accurate. But the real truth is that it's endurance. It's outliving the challenges. It's not about overcoming them. It's about outliving them. And when someone has outlived the challenges, success is inevitable because change is inevitable, and eventually not only will they change and improve, but the environment for that type of success will change and improve. And I'm just basically using this rant to tell people things I wish someone had told me. That's all I'm doing. And honestly, I'm doing this for me. I'm talking for me. And, you know, I don't have any conceived ideas about what it should be, what I should say, or what I shouldn't. I'm merely sort of talking to my past self, talking to who I was and telling me all the answers that I didn't have when I was that age. And I have high hopes that the right people will find this and listen. I have no idea if that will happen. But just understand this one concept. Success does not happen because of things you do. It's not about you. People say, oh, this person succeeded because, they were just smart and they saw the opportunity, and some of that is true. And don't get me wrong, I believe some of that is true. But what it really is they were the type of person to endure. And so they were already on the route. And then the circumstances through which they could succeed presented themselves. And they didn't present themselves because, they were just, in tune, plugged in, they understood, they studied more, they saw the pattern. No. They were just already headed in a direction. And when the opportunity came, they recognized it. And they did not know if they were going to succeed. They did not sit there and calculate. They did not overthink. They didn't worry. They didn't write up 1,000 different plans on how to do things. They just said, all right, I'll execute on it. Again, like as I always do, because I'm an endurance type person who repeatedly is able to do things regardless of the results. And I don't get defeated. And they kept doing the results, and lo and behold, if the conditions were right, the seed sprouted and germinated and it turned into a tree. And they succeeded. And they didn't have to do the hard work after that point because they had succeeded. And the tree was doing the hard work for them. I think the last thing I want to cover is this idea of the mentality, the punishing mentality of believing in oneself, and how that's also a lie that society pushes, this idea that, oh, you got to believe in yourself. It is not the belief that does it. It's the actions. And it is not, you're not taking those actions because you believe in yourself. That's just what people think. Now, how does one get into a position where they think that the belief in oneself is what motivates you? No. It is not that at all. No, you see, there's this sort of mentality out there where they say, man, if only I could believe in myself, I'd be successful. No, what you're really saying is that you're unwilling to be motivated by anything but ego. That's what you're really saying. That you're unwilling to be motivated by anything but ego. Now let's unpack that, because that's a complicated idea. Believing in oneself, what does that even mean? You know, I don't think that Martin Luther King Jr. was marching on Washington because he believed in himself. You'd have to be insane to think that. I think there are people who believe in themselves that get lucky and they get successful, and then they tell everybody you got to believe in yourself, because they don't even know how it's done. They never had to work. It happened to them. It's not something they did, but they believe it's something they did because they believe in themselves. You see, when you succeed and you haven't done the pain, you're allowed to believe lies, and you repeat them, and other people listen to you. But when you've done the pain, you know that's all horseshit. It's all bullshit. It's not about that. It's not about the self. The ego has to step out of the way. And you have to be willing to look at the world objectively and say, what is worth doing? Repeatedly, continually, until I am proud of the thing itself. Not of me, not of my accomplishment, but of the thing itself. Okay? Because when you're thinking about yourself, in context to yourself, you're never willing to take the pain required to succeed. I think I need to talk more about this pain and what it is. Okay, back to what I was saying before. People think that third time's the charm. They think that I try and I fail, I try and I fail, and then I try and I succeed. And that's a lie. That is an egocentric view of the world, as it's something that you are doing. You see, when someone plants a seed and it doesn't germinate, they could sit there and say, oh, I did it, I was the fault, it didn't germinate. Let's imagine you're a farmer, and you're a subsistence farmer. You're not like a hobbyist. You're out on the prairie by yourself, and if your crop fails, it's the end of the world for you. You die. You have to go hunting something. If you make it about you, you can set up all the perfect conditions for planting, and a storm could come through and none of your seeds could germinate. And that would not be your fault, but you would die. If you don't make it about you and you understand that failure is the norm, then what you do instead is you have a contingency plan. Maybe you plant more seed than you normally would, so that if some of it doesn't germinate, you still have a crop. Or maybe you save some of it just in case that planting fails. Or maybe you till more land and put more effort into it. You see, you can't make it about yourself. You have to make it about the environment in which you live. another point I'd like to point out, and I've been getting distracted, but this pain is an entirely ego thing too. Because what prevents you, once you've failed several times, from going at it again? What prevents you? Well, I'll tell you what prevents you. When you go and you fail, and you try and you fail, and you continue to fail, you eventually become convinced that you understand your limitations. Let me make this very clear. You do not even begin to comprehend how much potential you have inside yourself. You don't even know what it means to be a soul. You don't know even the power that is deep, deep, deep within, the power that created the universe. So what it really is you have accepted the terms of your ego. Your ego has told you who you are because it says to itself, if I allow this person to continue trying and failing, they may fail in a big way. And if they fail in a big way, they may die. And then that is my death also. So the ego goes, oh, no, we can't have that happening. We will instead tell them that if only they put more effort, they would succeed. And so you put more effort in. And then you try. And you try harder. And you commit more, and then you fail in a bigger way. And the ego goes, well, if he had succeeded, I would be fine. And now that he's failed in a bigger way, he doesn't have an option to try. He has been defeated. And so the ego says, okay, I will survive a little bit longer because of this. And so you compromise, and you accept the compromise with reality. You accept the slavery. You accept the terms and the conditions. And that's the end. That's the end of your attempts to succeed. Even though you're a soul, you're an unlimited power. And so the key here, and the thing I want to drive home one last time, is that pain is entirely generated from the ego and the attachment of the ego. And that success does not come through the ego. Success comes through putting aside the self, observing the conditions of the environment which you are in, and determining that you will use endurance to overcome. Not effort, not perspiration, like the old adage says, but endurance. That you will be in a condition where it's not that you try and that you fail, it's that you try and fail every single day, every single month, every single year you are trying and failing, because that's who you are, someone who tries to make a change. And then the conditions will come, and you'll recognize them, and you will have improved yourself through this process. And don't overcommit, Don't do something to where if you fail, there's no way out. Don't dig the pit too deep. Just continually try and fail with the small things until you understand success. And have endurance. And then you will understand the nature of success, that it is endurance. It is not effort. You cannot succeed through effort. Only endurance. And that's something that I really wish I could have told myself when I was younger, or really wish I had someone to tell me that. And that's all I've got to say.